An interesting new study out, and it actually researched 20 million births. And what they found was that babies born by C-sections, cesarean, are a third more likely to develop autism. And an analysis of more than 60 separate studies found that those who were delivered this way were also a sixth more likely to develop ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So let's talk about that this morning. She is a licensed professional counselor, a brain health specialist, and head of the Center for Brain Health, Lee Richardson, rejoining us on the Wake Up Call. Lee, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So, is there a causal link here where, people can actually say, well, yeah, it's the C-section and not necessarily, other stressors, because there's usually certain conditions present prior to a person getting a C-section?
Well, I think what's impressive about the study is the 20 million. That certainly gets my attention. But I think that we have to stop and look at, too, I've worked with autistic kids and families off and on over the years, and I've come to the conclusion that there's not one single factor that's causing the autism. There's certainly some genetics that come into play. There's genetic factors. And there's certainly some environmental factors that come into play. And when you think about a C-section, that could be an environmental factor that comes into play, because some are planned for the health and the best welfare for the mother and the baby, and some are unplanned. And those that are unplanned, in some ways, represents emotional trauma. And emotional trauma creates dysregulation in the brain. It can upset the neurological development.
So what you're saying is it could be a different factor than C-sections?
I think that, there's something that the C-section could factor in, because you also don't know what has happened before the C-section. Has there been trauma in the womb? Was delivery started and they were able to stop it using different medications? I think that 1 out of 4 women in the UK have a C-section. And the interesting thing to me about that is they actually use midwives. And there's an opportunity, I think, because if you have that connection with your midwife and you can talk about your concerns with the pregnancy, I think there's a real opportunity to prevent difficulties.
All right. What are some things, as far as the research goes regarding autism? There's a lot of talk about autism, everything from, it being like what you said, these different stressors, to, the food that we eat. You've got a number of folks that believe that vaccinations cause it, that it's a variety of other things, chemicals in the environment. What does the latest research actually show that, are indicators towards autism?
I think the latest research shows that there's really not one known cause. You mentioned a lot of the factors, low birth weight, metabolic imbalances. For a long time, vaccines was really believed to have a direct link. And then they did research that showed that that is not so. So the latest research that I've seen, it comes to the conclusion that there are a number of factors, and there is not one thing that you can really point your finger at and say, that's what caused it.
All right. Well, Lee, we appreciate you joining us on the Wake Up Call this morning. You have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for having me.
All right. You take care.